Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Rajiv Vashne. I'm International Chair in Agriculture and Food Security and also the Director for Center for Crop and Food Innovation with Food Futures Institute at Murdoch University in Australia. I feel honored and humbled to organize this session on behalf of Murdoch University in the partnership with the World Food Prize Foundation and with support of UNESCO, the World Academy of Sciences, the African Academy of Sciences, Australia-Africa Universities Network, Asia-Pacific Association of Agriculture Research Institutions, APAARI, and Africa-Australia Research Platform. Thanks to all of them for this exciting session. We would like to welcome you all for this very important session. And I should mention before we start that we had an overwhelming response on this session. As per registration statistics that I had 4 hours ago, we had about 700 participants from 55 countries. And I'm also very pleased to see that more than 35% participants, they are women. We are very excited to have a panel of eminent scientists and the policymakers around the world who have long-term experience in the international agriculture. We would like to thank all of them for accepting our invitation and joining this session despite of their busy schedules. Now, very quickly about this session, as we know that like every year, the World Food Prize Foundation is organizing the 2022 Borlaug International Dialogue in this week. This year's theme is Feeding a Fragile World. And this time it is focused on the nexus of agriculture, food security, and climate change, addressing adaptation and mitigation solutions to reach the SDG Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The triple threat of COVID, conflicts, and climate embodies the multiple challenges the global food system faces now and in the future. To address the challenges, the several events are being organized as part of the 2022 Borlaug International Dialogue. These events are expected to address scalable solutions for adaptation and mitigation to limit planetary warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, including SDG 2, which is talking about zero hunger. When we talk about that SDG 2, it is really sad to note that between 2014 and the onset of the pandemic, the number of people going hungry and suffering from food insecurity had been gradually rising. The COVID-19 crisis has pushed those rising rates even higher. And we are all aware that the war in Ukraine is further disrupting global food supply chains and creating the biggest global food crisis since World War II. The COVID-19 crisis has already exacerbated all forms of malnutrition, particularly in children. Agriculture definitely can address some of these above-mentioned points. For instance, high-yielding and nutritious varieties can provide enough food and also nutrition for tackling hunger and malnutrition, among many other contributions from agriculture. However, we are aware that not a single organization can tackle these serious issues. For this purpose, global partnership is very much required. And because of this reason, the focus of our session is to discuss the role and importance and contribution of international partnership to contribute to food and nutrition security in developing countries. Now, welcome once again to this exciting session. And we already have several hundred people now here, and also many of them, they are watching YouTube and also that platform from the World Food Prize Foundation. So without taking any further time, I would like to invite our first speaker, the inaugural speaker, Dr. Harold Roy-Macauley, and he is well-known name in international agriculture. He is the Managing Director for Partnership and Regions of One-CGIAR. That's the world's largest public R&D organization in agriculture. He is also the Director General for Africa RISE, one of those CGIAR research institute. He has long-term experience in international agriculture coming from the different organizations. Now we would like to invite him to share his views on partnership, especially from the perspective of the CGIAR, ARIs, and national programs for research and development in developing countries. I would like to request Harold for highlighting some examples from One-CGIAR or Africa Rise on international partnership. So floor is yours, Harold. And please join me in welcoming Harold.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. It's a pleasure being here. Talking to many people who are interested in food security, obviously, and food and nutritional security, and more importantly, partnerships. I'll try to share my screen because I have, yeah, let me see. Yeah, what did we do? Yeah. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, yes, please put in that presentation mode, yes.
Yeah. So, what I'm going to talk about partnerships, because that's what the whole the session is all about. Even though we're supposed to focus on food and nutrition security, and I'll focus my talk on what One-CGIAR is doing and its partnership with other institutions, including the advanced research institutions and the national agricultural research institutions in various countries. And I'm referring to this as developing a new paradigm for partnerships, obviously to advance the transformation of food, land, and water systems in a climate crisis. This is the core of the discussion. We need to transform our food, land, and water systems that are broken. And we know that for 50 years, the CGIAR has been, of course, with its partners, have been a leader in agricultural science and innovation for development. And from specific food crops to water systems to policy, CGIAR is an institution across the globe, working independently and together in partnership. We have produced science that has brought benefits to hundreds of millions of the world's poor. As you can see on the slide, quite a few interesting projections on what we have achieved. And an independent assessment has shown that CGIAR has achieved a tenfold return on investment. This is very important for partners, that they should know that. Here, we want to emphasize that the world has changed, and CGIAR has to change with it. It must change with it, I should say. Today, we know that the world is facing increasingly complex and interconnected threats to its food security, including the impact of climate change, pandemic, and conflicts, as you have mentioned, Rajiv. So we need fresh and bold new approaches to effectively address these challenges and deliver on the sustainable development goals that you've mentioned. Now, this recognition has inspired One-CGIAR to reform, to unlock the combined capabilities of its people, knowledge, and global presence to achieve greater impact. So the challenges there, the opportunities, and the solution. Now, what is One-CGIAR? The One-CGIAR, we need to know what it is. I mean, we're talking about this, and some people are still asking the question. It is, it's a transition which aims to a sharper mission and impact focus, unified governance, and you will see that on the screen, institutional integration, the new research modality, and obviously what most people don't like to talk about is the funding side. We need pool funding to be much more effective and efficient in the way we're going to deliver on these great challenges that we have in front of us. I just want to maybe share with you a few highlights on the 2030 research and innovation strategy that puts climate change at the heart of our agenda. And this, as you can see, it adopts a systems transformation approach for food, land, and water. Research is organized along 3 action areas, as you can see: system transformation, genetic innovation, and resilient agri-food systems. And the results are delivered across 5 impact areas. And these impact areas are similar to impact areas of the system development and the SDGs. And also when we look across various the strategies of various partners, these impact areas are reviewed as being very, very important. And we are also aligned to this impact goal. So that creates a scope for partnership, great opportunities for partnership. We're looking as well how to deliver on these on this research agenda. As part of the current reform, we have strengthened our strategy to integrate partners' perspectives and needs. This is very important if we're talking about the last 5. In terms of partnerships, regions and countries are positioned as central dimensions of CGIAR's partnership and impact. Regional directors have been appointed to lead the engagement process with partners. We believe that we need to engage in, across the globe in regions, and we have 6 regions that we have outlined. Obviously, these regions are also addressing major agroecological zones: the Latin American Caribbean region, Central and West Asia, Northern Africa region, West and Central Africa region, South Asia, Southeast Asia, East and Southern Africa region. So we have all these 6 regions that we're working in. But what is the most important thing is that we have One-CGIAR regional directors that are engaging with countries and regions. Moreover, we have in each country, rather than having several center representatives, we have one country convener that is actually coordinating research in this country. So the link up, and the job is to align to the demands and needs of countries. Here, I just want to mention that in the case of a partnership, in implementing the research agenda, we have a new research and innovation portfolio of initiatives. Now, these are major prioritized areas of investment that bring capacity from within and beyond CGIAR to bear on well-defined major challenges. Now, 6 of the 32 initiatives that we have are regional integrated initiatives that will ensure that there is an integrated response to local demands from across the action areas. They will operate by co-identifying challenges and research focus with key partners, and by co-designing, co-creating, and co-learning with these partners throughout the innovation process. So this is very important in our partnership. So we're having this, and obviously all of what we're aiming to is to have deliver on these 5 impact areas that I mentioned. In terms of engagement, we have held a series of high-level consultations to show how CGIAR will work with partners to boost impact. This is very, very important. One such important consultation was hosted by the African Development Bank in partnership with FARA, the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, the African Union Commission, and CGIAR. Participating organizations in this consultations included the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, the AAUN, NEPAD, and sub-regional research organizations in Africa. Now, these are very important institutions, research and innovation institutions in Africa, and obviously we also work with other institutions in the Global South. There was a strong commitment by the partners to work together to strengthen human and institutional capacity of Africa's agricultural research and innovation system, and leverage CGIAR global networks to foster greater South-South and triangular cooperation, all with the aim of responding to the challenges around food, land, and water systems. And today, CGIAR is a bolder and more operationally integrated institution, and we are now a stronger global, regional, and local partner of choice for food systems transformation, with a unified presence and clear entry points for engagement. As you can see, we're working with the NAS, multi-stakeholder platforms, global and regional bodies, private sector, all of these facilitate sector-wide progress. And with a unified presence and clear entry points for engagement, CGIAR will be much more accessible to partners and stakeholders at the global, regional, national, and local levels for more coherent responses. In conclusion, growing our funding will enable us and our partners to do more for and with smallholder farmers. CGIAR aims to raise $2 billion by 2030 to support its transformational work together with partners. Funding, of course, is a crucial piece of the puzzle, as agricultural research is chronically underfunded. A doubling of investment in research and innovation is required to end hunger, eradicate poverty, and fight climate change by 2030. With CGIAR research and innovation providing a 10-to-1 return on investment, funding the new initiatives provides a clear path to impact for people and planet. And all of this has been summarized in this last slide, which is talking about partners and what the benefits, farmers and consumers, what they will benefit from this. And obviously, we're making a case for a stronger collaboration and partnership to attract donors, the interest of donors to actually fund agricultural research addressing these challenges in food and nutritional security. So I'd like to end here, Raji, and would like to thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to say a few words about CGIAR's partnership with other institutions all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harold. Thank you very much. I think this was wonderful intervention from you. And you highlighted very nicely about that importance and role of that One-CGIAR, which brings huge partnership in the area of international agriculture. So we will discuss, we will take some questions later stage, but at this stage, thank you very much, Harold. And if you would like to unshare your screen, then we can move to the next presenter. Now we would like to move to Dr. Jennifer Wan, the next speaker, and she is the acting managing director for Africa's Food System Forum of the AGRF and also the head of the Partnerships Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. In short, we call it AGRA. We would like to invite her to highlight some success stories and also her vision from AGRA or AGRF perspective. So we would welcome Jennifer. The floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. And my apologies, I had an electricity cut just before I came on. So my connection is a bit shaky, but it's really an honor to be here and to share the stage with so many different actors. I would really like to share with you very briefly some of the interesting engagements and partnerships that we have done at AGRA. So maybe first and foremost, why do we think it's so critical? And some of these slides are busy, but I'll just take the gist out of it. When it comes to the African continent, there is an estimated investment gap of $40 billion a year when it comes to food systems transformation on the continent. And that is $40 billion of both public and private investment that is missing. We haven't even added to this equation, actually, the investment gap when it comes to climate change, adaptation, and resilience that is relevant for the continent. I'm just sharing this because this number alone is astonishing, but I think what it signals is that no institutions, no government can close this on its own. We have to work in partnerships and we have to align our models and investments to make sure that we can address the challenges the continent faces. Now, AGRA, an institution established by Dr. Kofi Annan and we more than a decade ago, and we just revised our new strategy. And I'm just taking you to some of the highlights that we would like to address in our next 5-year strategy as we are tackling some of the challenges that the continent faces. We're actively engaging in 15 focus countries where we work with governments and partners to basically strengthen their food systems. We're targeting 28 million farmers, and we hope to invest over $300 million into competitive markets, but we hope to leverage through our investment $3 billion of investment through flagship programs in countries, but also by working in partnership. Now, how do we work in terms of our basic approach? Once again, a busy slide, but what you can see is a food value chain, and we always say we're here to help mitigate risk. We help to buy down risk at the beginning.
Sorry to interrupt. If you can please make it full screen. We see the presenter more. And display settings.
My apologies. According to my presentation, it is in presentation mode already.
you can just make it, and then at the top you have display settings wherein you can just add to UL display.
Yes, I have pressed all the right buttons. Is it still in slide mode or in presentation mode?
It's in slide mode, but this is bigger than what we had before. Can you try again? Sorry.
No, it's absolutely okay. I'm not really sure why it's doing that. Maybe I should
go down. There's an icon at the bottom there. Yeah, click on that.
Okay, so I've clicked on the icon at the bottom, and unfortunately nothing is happening.
At the top you see that resume slideshow. Can you click on that, please? At the top is just where your arrow is. You have resume slideshow.
I have clicked that. Is that better?
Just a custom slideshow. Right. Try that one again.
So I have clicked a couple of times, but I'm not sure that it's happening.
No, it's not.
Dr. Rajiv, what do you advise? I know it worked perfectly in the beginning.
I would suggest now to continue, because you have tried everything and I do not see any issue that why this is happening, but I think this is, yeah.
Yes.
So
I hope it's still a bit readable. My sincere apologies for that.
In fact, when we checked, everything went well. So I don't know that why this happened, but I think in the interest of time, this is okay. You can continue now, please. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I just wanted to highlight for this slide, what we do with our partners is that we basically bite on risk in the beginning of the value chain by supporting aggregation of farmers, engaging with partners. We invest across the food value chain and also across different actors. As AGRA, we are very committed to a food systems approach, meaning that we understand the complexities of food value chains, and we have a variety of programs to which we engage with our partners to actually make value chains work at the beginning in terms of risk mitigation and ensuring and facilitating aggregation and also value chain connectivity, but also further down the value chain. That's also one of the key aspects of how we're moving forward with our new strategy. I'm just sharing this because our delivery model, as you hopefully can see here, how do we deliver? Through partnerships. As I mentioned before, no single actor, also AGRA cannot do it alone. So we work with private sector partners, research institutions, CGR, and Syngenta. Some of our partners are here on the call as well. Going back to the next, just quickly highlighting, what are we looking for when we're looking for partnerships? Scale. Can we increase the numbers of farmers that we're reaching? Transformation. What is the impact on farmers' income and on food security? Can we accelerate delivery by creating synergies? We are exactly and deliberately looking for leverage. We want to increase the amount of funding that goes into food value chains, and we believe in a food systems approach. Is it sustainable, not only from an environmental perspective, but also when we withdraw with our public funding, are there business models, either public-private, that can actually take over some of these activities? I would just like to highlight a couple of actions and activities that we're doing. Now, I mentioned before that we're working in 11 countries. This is just a snapshot of what we're doing in, for example, Kaduna State, where we're working with thousands of farmers and we're creating what we call village-based agents. These are mother-baby demo plots as close as possible to the farmers to help to bridge the last mile alliance. So far, I think very similar to many projects and programs that are happening. And we are investing through a grantee method, having different grantees who are working to build capacity, cover last mile alliance, and also connect to market. What makes it interesting is that by creating what we call these consortia, by creating actually aggregated and coordinated service delivery to farmers. We can actually partner with other actors who can help to strengthen these last mile delivery models. And they can do it in different ways by independently helping to extend these demonstration models, by co-investing with us, or by providing input and training. And I would like to explain how we've basically managed to build with some of our private sector partners models. This is just a quick snapshot of what we've been doing in terms of equipment finance, using matching grants to prove business cases, working with the consortia of farmers that we're working with, and building complete supply chain models around that. I have here a snapshot of where we've actually built a service model with Tata International and John Deere, a mechanization model around 100 SMEs that are now technical service providers to many of the farmers that we work with. And we have many more with Hello Tractor, with other actors as well. We've also been able to leverage these consortia that we have to introduce other type of innovations. So this is the digital innovations that we have brought to different other regions from Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana. Remember, we work across 11 countries, so we can bring to our partners also a certain level of scalability of some of these models, and of course, all of the lessons that we're learning through that. Fast forward to different type of partnerships that we're building around blended finance facilities. I've said it before, we need more than $40 billion of investments, and we have been working with some of our partners to create funds and facilities to accelerate inclusive finance in agriculture. I'm just highlighting two. One is the ABC Fund, which is an investment fund, an agribusiness capital fund that we established together with IFAD. It's $50 million of blended fund towards agribusinesses and agri-oriented financial intermediaries. And as an AGRA, what we like our funding to do is to be catalytic in terms of the design of the fund, the setup, but we also support actually building a pipeline of SMEs that we work with and where we strengthen their supply chains to basically work with a fund. Gearshaal is yet another approach. It's a guarantee facility that we've built in Ghana with the Africa Development Bank to also strengthen the access to finance for quite a number of SMEs. I know that my time is limited, so I could talk about quite a number of other activities that we're doing, but I would like to highlight the AGRF because I'm also an acting manager director for that. The AGRF is Africa's Food System Summit, our largest convening in Africa on food systems transformation. And we recently convened here in Kigali under the leadership of President Kagame with close to 3,000 people on the ground and over 2,000 people online. Why is it so critical? AGRA is the whole secretariat of the AGRF, which in itself is a partnership of 26 institutions from the AFDB to countries like companies like OCP, the government of Rwanda, to really help to strengthen the advocacy, the setting of the agenda, and the catalyzing of action around food systems. We played a critical role in the UN Food Systems Summit in 2021 to facilitate the African voice into the UN food system, support countries in crafting pathways, and this year we came back with the countries that are pioneering, Ghana, Malawi, and Rwanda, to share basically their flagship priorities to help mobilize investments into their food system strategies. It's only a fraction of what we're doing at the AGRF. We have an agribusiness deal group, we convene around the research agenda, but I think it's critical because in addition to the implementation of activities on the ground, it is so critical that we also ensure that we build partnerships around creating a credible voice for the African continent, not just regionally, but also globally in terms of what the priorities are around food systems transformation. I would like to leave it at that. Once again, my apologies for the technology failure. Happy to share my presentation with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for very nice presentation and highlighting the role and activities of AGRF and AGRA, and so in the different areas. So not only from the technology perspective, partnership, finances, SME, I think these are all play very, very important role. So congratulations to you and that leadership team of AGRA and AGRF. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Now we would like to move ahead, and at this stage, I would like to invite Dr. Chike Mba, who is the team leader for plant genetic resources and the seeds of Food and Agricultural Organization, and also very old friend of mine. And as we know, the FAO is that leading organization in the world that takes care of food and agriculture. And we are very much pleased to have you, Chike, with us. We would like to invite you now to share your views on partnership, maybe in your area, for the better utilization of plant genetic resources or biotechnology, because you have been working in this space for many, many years, that how we can develop the better seeds for the developing countries. Chike, floor is yours, please. And welcome.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, for this kind and generous introduction. Good day, everyone. I bring you all warm greetings from the leadership of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, in the hopes that this roundtable will yield insights that contribute to this our task of the quest to abolish hunger, malnutrition, and poverty. On a personal note, I am thankful to you, Rajiv, and to Murdoch University for the opportunity to contribute to this discourse. At FAO, this is a very busy week with the ongoing World Food Forum and the concurrent FAO Science and Innovation Forum. But like this roundtable, the overarching aim is to generate and validate evidence that enable us to be that generation which finally ends hunger wherever it occurs and abolishes malnutrition in all its forms. Rajiv has asked me to speak to the leveraging of partnerships to harness the potentials of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture to deliver seeds to farmers, especially in developing countries. But let me just step back a bit to underscore that as an intergovernmental organization, everything that we do here at FAO is based on partnerships. It's therefore difficult to talk about one and leave the other. However, for reasons of emphasis, let me advise or remind those of us who already know that FAO has a stream of work at the highest echelons of its leadership that is led by a Deputy Director General, which is dedicated to partnerships. And so we have these partnerships with other UN agencies, resource partners, industry, civil society, grassroots organizations, indigenous peoples, research and academia, and a host of others. And in this vein that FAO has developed a new strategy for private sector engagement. So perhaps a more meaningful use of the time here is that I share some perspectives on the work that we do, and then hope that you're able to glean the centrality of partnerships in everything that we do here. However, first, let me situate the work in some context. As a common premise, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, we agree that the Sustainable Development Goals, to which Rajiv spoke to quite eloquently at the beginning, that through this we have committed to end hunger and malnutrition in 2030. In practical terms, what this means is that we have roughly 7 harvests to this day of reckoning. And but in spite of this closeness, last year, nearly 1 out of every 3 persons in the world, or 2.37 billion people, did not have access to adequate food. In fact, food insecurity and malnutrition have been worsening steadily since 2014. And Rajiv has already enumerated the drivers as being climate change, the COVID-19 crisis, the problem in Ukraine. But I would also add, since quite some reference has been made to Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, that we have probably one of the worst droughts that over the last few years happening in the Horn of Africa. So all these then, engender some level of pessimism. However, we at FAO, we believe that the world can provide enough food for everyone to eat. And it's on that basis that the organization has articulated its strategic framework 2022 to 2031, which is a means to lesser focus the work that we do as an organization with our partners on the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. What this strategic framework seeks to do is to transform our agricultural and food systems to become more efficient, inclusive, and resilient. And it has these interconnected aspirational four betters: better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. And an underlying principle for this strategic framework, just like the Sustainable Development Goals, is the importance of partnerships. So no institution can do it alone. But in the interest of time, let me pivot to the imperative of harnessing plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, with the ultimate aim of getting quality seeds and planting materials to the farmers who need them. Of course, this is important since over 80% of our food is plant-based. So, and we also know that just cultivating improved crop varieties can lead to yield increases of 50 to 90%. Just as a standalone, this is not to negate the complementarity of the good agronomic practices and, of course, the management of biotic stresses. Yet, in many food insecure countries, this doesn't happen. Farmers don't use the right varieties, and not enough number of farmers either use the quality seeds. So what do we do? And FAO, mindful of this importance of seeds, and also knowing that seeds don't just happen, they are made. Our support to countries in association with, in collaboration with our development partners, implemented through 3 main modules: the safeguarding of the plant genetic resources for food and agriculture, breeding a diverse suite of progressively superior crop varieties, and then finally enhancing farmers' access to these varieties, to these seeds. Our work is implemented again through 2 main ways. There is the normative aspect of our work, whereby we convene countries to agree on norms and policies. Our team hosts the Intergovernmental Technical Working Group on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, of FAO's Commission on Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. Perhaps a number of us know about this because you may be contributing to one flagship product that we are working on, which is the 3rd report on the state of the world's plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. But then we also have the operational work, where we work in the field with countries, with development partners. I just give you an example. A development partner, the European Union, is funding a multi-year project in Mozambique, through which farmers are being supported to access quality seeds. And this involves using FAO's farmer field schools to establish demonstration plots that enable farmer participatory variety selection, aggregating these farmers into cooperatives, and ultimately supporting some of them to become seed producers themselves. Yeah, this is just one example of the kind of thing that we do. And regarding biotechnologies, Rajiv and other colleagues, let me just make it abundantly clear that we at FAO, we believe that biotechnologies, agricultural biotechnologies can contribute to this quest to attain food security and nutrition. However, we are also mindful of the concerns regarding safety in certain quarters, which is why we advocate a case-by-case evaluation of the fit for purpose and then all the safety considerations. We disseminate information, we organize conferences, and a number of you have participated in this. We also publish a newsletter. And something that I want you to look out for is that we are currently preparing a set of case studies that demonstrate the application of biotechnologies to address constraints to smallholders' production systems. And Rajiv, dear friends and colleagues, in closing, let me call on governments and development partners to join in the efforts to strengthen institutional and human capacities, especially in developing countries, so that every farmer can have access to quality seeds and planting materials of the crop varieties most suited to the production systems and or end user preferences. And I thank you very much. Over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chike, for highlighting that activities of FAO and especially in the context of the PGR, seeds and partnership. You gave the example of success story of Mozambique partnership. I think this is wonderful. And thank you very much for also congratulations for your leadership in FAO for working in this direction. We really appreciate. We will come back to you later, Chike. Now we would like to invite Dr. Ravi Khetrapal, who is the Executive Secretary for APAARI. APAARI is Asia Pacific Association of Agricultural Research Institutions. And APAARI is doing wonderful work, especially in Asia and Pacific. And I should also mention that APAARI is one of the co-organizers of this session. So we are very much pleased to receive your help and support, Dr. Khetrapal, that your team is also working with us for organizing this session. And now floor is yours to discuss or to have your views and vision about the partnership. Floor is yours, Dr. Khetrapal.
Thank you, Rajiv, and good morning, evening, afternoon to everyone. Well, we had been listening to some big organizations talking on the high-level issues and giving their expert opinion, and it was quite well done, I believe. If you talk of FAO or CGIAR, they are the global organizations who drive the agri-food system agenda and partnership also. Importance of partnership has been well highlighted. I will like you all to permit me to speak on something very simple, something which is on the ground, something which is very important when you actually work on the ground, and something which you don't learn from the PowerPoints, which you learn when you are involved into partnership or you look for a partnership, and with the case studies of our small experiences in the Asia Pacific region. Now, as some of you may be knowing, APAARI is a membership-based, unique apolitical organization with more than 80 members, representing a diversity of members and partners. From NARS, we have 22 members, One-CG, which means all the 12 CG centers, which are members, ERCA institutions like CABI or like World West Center and ECMOD and so on. We have education sector. We have sub-regional fora like SARC, like SPC, etc. So we have a cocktail of the diversity of the members and partners within the organization. We work on different thematic areas. I'm not going to highlight that. But what I want to say here from APAARI's observation and APAARI's side is membership engagement and partnership is key to APAARI's contribution. How you build partnership, how you keep your members engaged. I think that is where the functional aspects of the partnership in the R&D becomes very crucial. We create networking opportunities for our members and partners to choose their partners or support them with getting better partners. And we do it on a regular basis. Members actually, they need assessment and priorities. You know, we need to assess their priorities on regular basis, which we do with the membership engagement. And based on the priorities, we need to look at the partnerships. We scope for projects apart from our regular activities at global level, and project partners from members and even non-members are identified. And project partners, you know, are the key to success of the project. But the key point is how to select a partner. Honestly, we can give big presentations, but many times you have no choice. You have no choice. You have to work with the partner. You have to work with the partner. It is from a least developed country. It has a lot of issues. You have to work with them because we are supposed to work for them. And above all, in few cases, we can be selective. This will depend on what kind of a partner we talk about. Now, if you look at the nature of partnership, what we have observed, you confront many scenarios. Sometimes you need partner at a strategic level. Sometimes you need partner at the operational level. You do need development partners. You do need research partners in the research project. And over and above, most important, you need funding partners. So partnership is not as simple as we look at. Partnership has to be very focused, it's very clear, and we move on with the case scenarios which are before us. The key point here is expectations cannot be same from each of the partner, and how you select your partner, there is no documented literature on it. No norms how to deal with your partners. And end of the day, when you work for science and development and research and innovation, what we come to the conclusion, just like we deal with our people, our relatives in our social life, our friends, this human factor becomes very crucial in choosing a partner and in sustaining a partner forward. These are some ground realities which I thought I must share. Now, as I've been asked to speak more on the partnership of the R&D institutions in the region, I may give some examples here, again, based on what is the experience of APAARI. What we have seen is the best form of moving ahead in any program, activity, or project is a triangular partnership model. A triangular partnership model means you have a clear global south partner, you have the best from your region, you have a partner from the global north, You have to bring the best practices, the best innovations, best technologies to the global south. And you have the country project partners, which are the beneficiaries. So you really need to make it sure that you have everyone in that basket to make the story complete and to be effective on the ground. Just like we have a project from Standards and Trade Development Facility of WTO on Asia pesticide risk management for mitigation of risk and for promotion of biopesticide in the region for facilitation of trade. Now, choosing the partners here has been many times in an association, you just ask for expression of interest. Who want to be the beneficiary partner? Some come forward. Then you have to make sure that you choose the right one who fit into that scope of the project. So we work with the 9 countries from South Asia and Southeast Asia, but we got the technical experts from USA and we got the technical experts from Asia. So we try to ensure that we have this triangular model where we have everything to move the project forward. We get the best of expertise from Asia, from beyond Asia, from the globe, and we help in implementing the projects in an autopilot mode, but partnership principles then need to be adhered to. Partnership principles are many if you Google out, but for us, partnership principles means a partner with whom you can have a trust, faith, and the minimum respect, and respect to time, respect to each other's activities, and working as a team. These are some minimum principles we expect. So, lot of linkages are established and formalized if we strengthen partnerships at local level. Partnership is just not we have one partner. Partnership actually we have seen in one of our projects in Bangladesh. Through the public sector partnership, we got a lot of other relevant public sectors which play important scientific and other role in the work of phytosanitary compliances for WTO compliances in the international trade. And these linkages were completely missing. But thanks to our partners which established the linkages, which helped us to develop a complete system. So partnerships can have a multiplier effect because the linkages they can scale up to make the story complete is very important. We talk of agri-food system, and we cannot talk of a system unless we work with these partnerships of multiple kinds from diverse areas which are so crucial. Now, we have another project where our partnership mode is entirely different. It's with the farmers' organization. Yeah. So while working with the farmers' organization, Asia Farmers Association of Philippines, we have seen we can do a lot of bringing farmers as the in the co-designing of the project, in the co-learning and co-implementation in one of the projects of Global Forum of Agriculture Research, which is a kind of a collective action on forgotten food. I'm not going to speak on the project per se, but what I'm telling you is the kind of partnership you build. And sometimes you have to have partnership at the bottom of the pyramid. Every time you don't need to start with the top guns in the partnership. So this is a different model of partnership, bottom-up approach, which we feel is quite crucial for the agri-food system sustainability. Then we have started a project, we had launched it with the private sector association, with 4 big private sectors who are in the seed trade, International Seed Federation, all scientific norms of seed certification and other activities which they are taking care of, all the database and all, and the regional development agencies like CropLife Asia and American Seed Trade Association and all, who all come as a big development partner. So sometimes you need this only private sector partner where you really want to increase the supply chain, where you really want to make sure that you are there, APAARI is there, we can bring that public sector linkages. So the partnership model working with them becomes entirely different. But the very objective of what you want to do, I think is very crucial for the partnership. In some of the projects, you need to partner mainly with the policymakers, with the regulators. Like we have partnered with Australia, Japan, Korea, 3 countries in a big way, because we are developing a policy positioning document, a resource document on genome editing, which, as you all know, is very crucial. At the same time, we took partners from developing countries and the least developed countries to ensure that we have a clear policy positioning paper brought out so that we see genome editing norms quite accepted by the government across the Asia and Pacific region, and which gets a kind of a clear policy acceptance. So the nature of partnership is very crucial. So whom you have to partner when you do for the policy thing. And similarly, with one of our components of a project on biopesticide regulatory cooperation and coordination, we have directly linked with the regulators in the individual country and with an expert from a former very famous guy from the Environment Protection Agency of US, where clearly we have partners who are well versed with regulation, who bring the right thing on the ground, who can harmonize, and who see the global acceptability of the policies which are required to keep the subject moving ahead. Then, of course, we have partnership with international organizations on certain projects like the CGIAR and all on the agri-food system. But I may not like to say much on a couple of projects we are doing. I would like to conclude here by giving a few key messages. Number one, a partnership has a purpose well defined, and we all know it has a very well defined purpose. Secondly, all partners will not be equally efficient, and we need to accept and move ahead. We just don't need to be disappointed when we work on the ground. But we need to select the partners cautiously, as every project has a shelf life, unfortunately. And very important point I may like to say here, partners for achieving outputs and partners for achieving outcomes are often not the same.
Yes, sir.
Or for those meant for achieving the outcomes, I think we just need to ensure that there is an ownership. You leave an ownership behind apart from the research output with the partner. So they're entirely different, and they both are very important to really scale up your innovations to impact. And partnership with public sectors should create. I'm finishing, Rajiv.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Last point I would say, in the agri-food system transformation, this whole thing is basically based on partnership. We talk about multi-stakeholder platform with multiple partners, a bit of innovative approach to make things viable is so important. If you have a good experience of dealing with multiple partners, you will end up in all your work by scaling up partnerships, which is crucial, and scaling up communication of your activities that happen by itself when you scale up the partnership. I stop here. Thank you, Rajiv.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for highlighting that rules, also the guidelines of the partnership, and then what kind of partners we need. I think you covered everything in this area and also highlighted several success stories, examples of partnership from APAARI. So we really appreciate. Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi Khetrapal. Now we would like to move to the next speaker, and this is the time now for me to invite Dr. Vivienne Anthony. She is a senior scientific advisor with the Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture. She brings lots of expertise from the different areas and also from the private sector. Prior to this role, she used to be head of the crop enhancement research at Geneca, also global head of the crop production, product development and regulatory affairs for seeds and biotechnology at Syngenta. And many of already aware about her. Really, she had a lot of patents to her name or so when she used to work on that fungicide invention. So we are very excited to have you here, and we would like to invite you to share your vision. And I know you're talking nowadays a lot about the demand-led breeding, and you are championing this thing in Africa. So we look forward to hear your views, Viv. So please join me in welcoming Viv, and floor is yours.
So I'm waving. Thank you so much, Prof. Varshney, and the organisers for inviting me to this discussion panel. I'm really delighted to be here this evening. I'm actually calling in from Australia. And I thought I'd start by just saying a few words about the Syngenta Foundation, just very quickly. So we're a not-for-profit Swiss foundation whose vision is a brighter future for smallholder farmers in developing countries. We have a tight geographic focus, that's sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Asia. We always work in partnerships. We try to catalyze innovation and the benefits from connecting public and private sector together, bridging the gap between research and the business domains. And in particular, in the area I work in R&D, trying to help to translate research into successful products in seeds, agri-services, access to finance and insurance arenas. So this evening, I'd like to share with you about some of the Foundation's experiences and insights from a particular multilateral partnership called, you've heard it already, Demand-Led Breeding, which is a project in Africa. As time's rather short, I don't have the nerves to rely on technology, particularly from here in Australia. So I'm just going to use a couple of props, and I hope that's okay. But firstly, to create the context for my contribution, we consider plant breeding to create new improved varieties is really one of the vital approaches needed for farmers to adapt and be resilient to climate change. And now more than ever, to support greater domestic food production in developing countries with high population growth. These are also the people that are most vulnerable to climate change. And we've heard already, you know, that really the consequences of these food trade shocks due to the pandemics, recent energy disruption and the conflicts. But going straight into this partnership, you may say, well, where did it come from? How did it start? It actually started in response to a set of data. And this is the DEVA study from 20 countries in Africa, which many of you, I'm sure, know quite well. And what it showed was that farmers were only planting on average, overall average, of 35% of the cropping area with modern varieties. So only 35%. And of all of the, you know, very precious public resources being used were actually being seen in farmers' fields. So this led us, together with the Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research and the Australian Crawford Fund, to question, well, why is this? And we set a hypothesis at the time that really was quite controversial. And that what we set was saying, well, part of the problem might be that the varieties being released don't offer sufficient compelling benefits for farmers to take the risk to change what they're growing. All right. And to look into this, rather than investigating the varieties that weren't being adopted, we decided that we would look for excellence. We wanted to seek out professional African breeders who are being highly successful with their varieties and to reach into the private sector seed companies on how they did their design, because these seed companies, they either thrive or completely fail on the merits of what they're selling. And at the time, nobody else was doing this. There was no training really or materials about what to design. Everybody was focusing on really fast moving science and how to use the best breeding strategies and the molecular tools to get genetic gain and do better. So what we did was we brought together interested public and private parties that were curious about what the best practices in variety design were, with a view to harnessing and promoting these for use by professional breeders. And the participants that basically came together, they co-created, and you can see a number of names, and I will mention some behind me. They co-created the program from a blank piece of paper. It didn't come from a project call to a set of funds available. The partners self-selected, and they came from 3 different types of institutions. That's the NAS, universities, the CGIAR in Ghana, Uganda, Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Kenya. And also leading African postgraduate plant breeding education centers at WACI, AKI, Makerere, University of Nairobi, and Haramaya in Ethiopia. And another very important partner that really wanted to work as part of the group is the Pan-African Bean Research Network, PABRA, led from Biodiversity Now and SIAT Alliance. And PABRA were already making advances in using market-led approaches and wanted to take it to the next level. So what we did was we connected into the private sector involving Syngenta, their training academy for breeders and other seed businesses. And together, the partners created a set of best practices and training modules, and focusing in really quite hard in the area of understanding clients' needs using market research, visioning and foresight, product profiling to create variety designs, looking at how to progress variety, best lines and decision-making in the development strategy, and also how to create compelling business cases to win investment. And this is really key. And in this last year, we've been strengthening the importance in this whole program of gender diversity and inclusion into each of these areas. Now, you know, we all know training materials, no matter how innovative or enthusiastic we are for them, by themselves don't create any change. They need to be used, and they need to be championed by practitioners and supported at a policy level by institutional senior management. So the program involved not just training and supporting breeders, but also doing policy work and advocacy work with senior officials and across all these institutions. And a key output has been a textbook, and we didn't imagine we were going to create a textbook when we started this, containing all these best practices for educators and practitioners, called The Business of Plant Breeding, Market-Led Approaches to Plant Variety Design in Africa. And here it is for anyone who would like to have a look. And this was written by all the partners together, each taking a special area that they were particularly interested in. Moving on from there, a central part of this practice is really what's called product profiling. And I'm sure many people are aware of this now, where this brings together multifunctional experts to decide together, firstly, who specifically the varieties are being designed to serve, and in quite a lot of detail. And secondly, the performance of each individual trait needed to ensure demand. And a product profile is a communication tool as well, when you're searching for varieties that might have these properties. So what's been the outcome of all of this? Well, I'm really sort of pleased to share with you that the enthusiasm and drive of all of the participants has meant now DLB is widely known across Africa. There's an active community of practice that spans over 400 practicing breeders, professional breeders, many of which are next generation breeders that have done their PhDs in Africa. The majority are based in national programs in universities, but also in the international research centers and in the CGIAR. We believe that one of the reasons why the program has achieved so much support is it's really very inclusive. It's fully inclusive. Everyone is welcome, and it's applicable to any crop, any geography, and also for both work in public and private breeding programs, independent of the size of those. And progressively more national programs and universities are incorporating the principles into their programs. And the first early adopters really at scale, and we hadn't envisaged this could happen almost as a system, has been the breeding communities in Ghana under Professor Eric Dankwa's leadership, and in Ethiopia, where senior leaders in the national regional programs and university advocating DLB across the all of the professional breeders on those circuits. They're also part of the, DLB is now part of the official curricula of the largest plant breeding PhD and MSc programs in Africa, the regional centers in One-CGIAR and Makerere. What I wanted to focus on before I finish is really to share with you some of the lessons we've learned during this partnership, which has really enriched, I think, our understanding of best practices on creating and enjoying and delivering serious outputs and in time impact. The first one, and I mentioned it early on, it's about co-creation by the partners that wish to be part of this because of the content, not just resources available, really from the start. And it really works best rather than trying to sell your ideas once you've formulated them or win support for implementation. This co-creation, really is the essence of creating winning partnerships. I believe, and this is a personal value, is finding and promoting excellence rather than spending too much time analyzing failure. It's learn from where it really works. The third thing is that change requires champions, and not external champions. It has to be champions from within institutions, and inspiring change from within rather than forcing it from external wins much more support. And this program has really benefited from being led and championed by respected Africans from within Africa. So they're leading the thinking and the change. And I think another particular success, and something that hasn't been mentioned so far today, is the wonderfully talented next generation of plant breeders that are coming through within Africa. And they've been the most receptive to these new approaches, and they are the ones that will change the landscape of Africa's food for the future, and investing in their efforts is really essential. And the last point, and I haven't really mentioned funders so far, it relates to the Swiss-Australian alliance that has supported this. They too, and we're part of that, have done things differently, and that they allowed flexibility so that the program could be adapted and follow the energy of the African partners to innovate, while still remaining true to the original overarching goals. And that, if we can create in an environment where there's flexibility to really follow innovation where it's leading to success, we need to try and find the way. But overall, finishing, I think it seems that linking really science and business gains together, in this case using DLB, is somehow tapped into sort of the natural entrepreneurial spirit of breeders and their teams, who really want to create products that are going to make a difference to people's lives and incomes for the longer term. So for me, it's been really a personal privilege to work with our partners in Africa and Australia on this unique creative journey of change. And many thanks to you all for listening. If you'd like to know any more, just Google demand-led breeding, and we have a dedicated website that's led by African Partner. And please just thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Viv, and I'm very pleased to mention that you have not just highlighted the partnership in Africa, but also highlighted the role of Australia, especially for the ACR Crawford Fund. And especially when you are in Australia and I'm in Australia, and Australia is playing an important role in international agriculture as well. So this is really good. And as you mentioned about the demand-led breeding, just would like to highlight this point to all the other colleagues. I have read that book. I am having that book. So I think this is really very important book. If those of you who have not read, I would strongly recommend. And I think this was really good. You highlighted the role of the next generation scientist also, and then old varieties, the demand-led breeding. This is really key. And especially in the terms of the partnership with the private sector as well. So thank you very much, Viv, for highlighting all these things. We will get back to you a bit later. Now I would like to invite Dr. Chiedozie Egesi. And when Chiedozie has been working as a project director for Next and Cassava for a long time, where he has been having the partnership with large number of organizations, national partners, CGIAR Institute like IIT, Advanced Research Institute, Cornell or so. And I'm very much pleased to share that when I invited Chiedozie, at that time he was a project director, and now I think he has already designated director for the National Root Crop Research Institute, NRCRI, Umokede in Nigeria. Don't want to take credit of that one. This is your hard work, Chiedozie, but again, congratulations for your new role. And we would like to hear your views and on the partnership, maybe by highlighting the Next Gen Cassava project. Chiedozie, floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you so much for having me here. I feel excited about it. And thank you for also announcing here my recent appointment as a Chief Executive Officer of the National Root Crop Research Institute. We deal on all roots and tuber crops, yam, cassava, potato, ginger, and the rest of them. So I'm saying that as an advert that we welcome every partner to come and join us to work. But today we are talking cassava, and I'm still the leader. I haven't relinquished that position yet, but maybe in the future it will happen. So Next Gen Cassava is a model of successful partnerships. That's just what I want to say. And I'm going to give a talk that will be kind of pivoting Vivienne's talk, Vivienne and Harold's earlier talk, and maybe a lot of other people here, is all around partnership, but this is specifically cassava breeding in Africa. So I will just talk about the project, its evolution, and the key partnerships and how we worked around it. First of all, the 3 C's, I've heard that a lot of times: the climate, the COVID, climate, and conflict as the 3 C's. And cassava stands strong to talk it stands tall when you talk about those 3 C's. 500 million people depend on this crop daily for their food, for their calories. Africa farmers produce more than half the world's cassava, and it's a hardy crop. So when you talk about climate, it's hardy. When you talk about conflict, it's also hardy in terms of where other crops will fail. Cassava will be able to stand back in terms of you can store it in the ground. You don't need to manage. It's not high intensive management like other crops like we know that will fail in such situations. But more importantly is that it's grown by farmers. The vulnerable people depend on this crop. They are the ones that process it, that grow it, that market it. So we take that as an important part of the development work we do. Next Gen Cassava is aimed at empowering farmers through innovative, sustainable cassava breeding. You can see the partners to the right, and many partners, 13 institutional partners from 4 continents, but all are focused. The work is focused on solving food security, providing food security using cassava in Africa. So the target focus is Africa, but beyond the 13 organizations, there are 7 others, and that is important to highlight here because we call them the community of practice partnerships. This project is coordinated by Cornell, but IITA, the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, has a lead role, being the main CG center that is involved in this. Vivienne also mentioned something around demand-led breeding, and we saw the beautiful book. I've also read it. I have a copy. So we created the project into 3 different divisions. We call them divisions for sake of nomenclature, but it's all about breeding as the center. But we have what we call the breeding research, the tools and the protocols, fine-tuning them to make for more efficient breeding. And then we talked, Vivienne talked about product profiles. She talked about preferences and needs. This is going beyond the breeders alone, using social scientists, food scientists, data scientists to partner, to be able to work together to develop new varieties that you can give to the client, to the farmer, to the marketer. So I'm going to mention a few key partnerships. Remember, I said that the Cornell University so far has been the coordinating center, and we recognize it as an advanced research institute. Harold mentioned about national programs, CG centers, and advanced research institutes. So in this case, we have Cornell as one of our key advanced research institutes. For Cornell, project management was the key. It was one of the things we did, but also the breeding research, genomic selection, genetic mapping, improved flowering techniques, and capacity building for African scientists was one of the some of the things that Cornell provided. Inside of Cornell is another organization called the Boyce Thompson Institute. We work together to develop a database called Cassava Base, and Cassava Base is not just for a repository of data. It is a digital ecosystem for cassava breeding data management. You can do your trial design, field design in this ecosystem. You can do selection, and you can also store data. To date, we are running up to 20 million data points and nearly 5,000, moving towards 5,000 trials, over 1,000 users from 22 programs. So even though we have 13 organizations, in fact, not all 13 are breeding programs, but we have 22 breeding programs from across the world that have deposited data and are using Cassava Base. We have an institute in Germany, Leibniz Institute, is a reference lab for diagnostics and phytosanitary screening. So you know that cassava is in South America as the center of origin, and a lot of cultivation is in Africa. So to do safe intercontinental germplasm exchange, we need a reference lab that has a good reputation. So we are using DSMZ for short, German Institute in Braunschweig, and we use them to move materials across the continents. And they've done a beautiful job in screening materials for viruses in particular, but also for other pathogens. But we've used this agency to be able to move germplasm that is resistant to virus diseases in Africa to Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia does not have resistance to this virus, but we have resistance in Africa, and so we're able to use this as a leverage point to do that. We also work with our partners in Embrapa, Brazil, and they do pre-breeding for Africa. So a lot of germplasm exchange and the use of genomic selection to do work. But come to the key partners in the CG centers: IITA, International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, and the International Center for Tropical Agriculture in Colombia, now called Biodiversity and the International Center for Tropical Agriculture. And we work with them as a key people. For example, IITA is a model breeding pipeline and provides examples and backstopping to guide the national programs in Africa. And we work primarily with 3 national programs, one in Nigeria, one in Uganda, and Tanzania as our main national program partners. And we've been able to work with them to release the first set of next-gen improved varieties in Africa that use genomic selection. For CIAT, they also provide germplasm support, genetic diversity for desirable traits, improved flowering, and application of genomic selection to make for better varieties. Talking about the national programs, Harold mentioned about the One-CG National Program and Advanced Research Institute. So these are our key research institutes in Nigeria, NRCRI, which I happen to now be leading, and NACRI in Uganda, and TARI in Tanzania. So we also have what we call citizen science research, whereby we use these models to identify winning varieties or winning traits, as the case may be, for varieties in Nigeria. For example, we have the triadic comparison of technologies that we use by farmers. So we work with farmers and breeders to select the best variety. For example, in Nigeria, we work with 320 farmers in the last 2 years. Each farmer gets 3 varieties, but we are evaluating like 30 varieties, but each farmer gets not more than 3 varieties, where they can say best and worst, and then the middle. And by some simple analysis, you'll be able to select the best varieties based on preferences, which is really the practical aspect of demand-led breeding. We know that we're building capacity at the national programs. Again, the CG Center supporting, or the Advanced Research Institute supporting in terms of data capture or data management or high throughput phenotyping. The breeder needs to work with a lot of numbers, and also to evaluate root quality traits. So cassava is a root crop, so you need to be, to give serious attention to the quality of the roots for palatability and all that. So we have what we call non-left behind. I had that again when you talk about partnerships, non-left behind, next gen's community of practice. So I mentioned the 3 countries in Nigeria, Uganda, and Tanzania, but we have 7 other countries, Rwanda, Zambia, Ghana, that we did not spend a lot of money on like we spent on the other ones. We call it spoke the hub approach, but we share learnings and resources. We do peer-to-peer visits. We exchange germplasm, especially of elite lines or of seedlings, and we support them in field management, trial design, and data analysis and data management, and be able to help them through with limited resources. And so we are scaling out our approach in that regard. Thank you again, Vivienne, when you mentioned so many students. So this is one of the we've had several students trained in the University of Ghana, West Africa Center for Crop Improvement, and the Makerere University, where we have the Makerere Regional Program for Center for Crop Improvement. And so far, in the last 9 years, we've been able to train 37 graduate students, most of them PhD students. So we believe in training the next generation of plant breeders through our project. And some of these people, or most of them actually, have now graduated and they have joined the national programs, some IITA in Nigeria or some in Uganda, and they are now scientists, young scientists doing breeding and using the modern tools that Vivienne mentioned about. Talking about breeding, we talk breeding and the science of breeding, but we also know that the variety is important. So we've been able to release 5 varieties in Nigeria. 4 of them were developed through genomic approaches, and they were not just released, they were released according to the product profile that Vivienne mentioned, that this one is good for fresh use, this one is good for granulated product, and this other one is good for industrial use. So we've released those varieties, and we have more coming in Uganda, 3 in Uganda and 3 in Tanzania in late this year. So in a few months, we may have this slight change that we have for Nigeria. Cassava is a vegetatively propagated crop, just like other roots and tuber crops. So one ratio of 1 to 5 is a multiplication ratio, which is very poor compared to grains, that is 1 to 300. So we have this going on where we have rapid multiplication of new varieties. And we've adopted a new technology called the semi-autotrophic hydroponics. And we've also started working with, off-takers projects and seed companies that are dedicated to cassava, not just grains, because you don't see seed companies that are very interested in vegetatively propagated crops. So we have IITA Go Seeds and Umudike Go Seeds, public-private owned, and we have them also in Tanzania. So why has NextGen been successful? It's successful because it's a cohesive group. First of all, we try to understand ourselves. We had a lot of meetings before we started, but we also collaborative, open-minded, to the point that everybody feels very free to deposit their data in the database without any issues. We also treated, there was a treatment between the CG and the NAS and the Advanced Research Institutes as co-equals. Nobody is bigger than the other. And that was because everybody was fighting or working for the common good. That was very important. Another thing we did to have our partnership was we brought in very good external advisors. We brought them from the industry. For example, one from Syngenta, another from Cortiva, and another one from, is it Inera? Some other, I can't remember the company in the US, but also from CG centers and from national program, and then some from the private sector, so from farmers. So we, last slide. So we pride ourselves as the flagship model for flagship breeding program for the 1CG. The 1CG is starting a new RTB cross-breeding project, which will be the new investment after NextGen. And we've already done this. We've modeled that project after NextGen because NextGen presents itself as a partnership model for CG, NAS, and ARI for breeding. We've also learned how to outsource high-end research to the advanced institutes and cost-effective and sustainable sharing of services has already been demonstrated in NextGen. And we've also shown how to work with the last mile delivery, making sure that the varieties we develop are going to the farmers. A lot of people are involved, and I don't have time to acknowledge all of them, but I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chiedozie. Very nice presentation, highlighting that importance of different kind of partnerships. And I think this is one of those success stories we really appreciate, and congratulations to your leadership. So, and again, wish you all the best for your new role as a CEO of that National Root Crop Research Institute. I'm sure I will be visiting you very soon. Thank you.
Very well. Welcome. Thank you.
And as we were hearing from the highest level, from the CGIAR and the AGRA, AGRA, and also from the Syngenta Foundation perspective, APAARI, and then we went to a particular project level at the NextGen Cassava. So you could see that how this kind of partnership is required to deliver to the specific output of the project. But in all these things, we also saw that I think that capacity building and having the next generation scientist is very much required. And for this purpose, we have invited Dr. Lise Korsten. She is the co-director for the Center of Excellence in Food Security coming from the University of Pretoria, heavily engaged with the African Academy of Sciences, who are also co-organizer of this session. So I'm sure that Lise is going to share some of our views on that people, partnership, and practices. Welcome, Lise, and the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. And last but not least, I want to just say welcome, good afternoon, and good evening to our friends and colleagues and stakeholders all over the world, but all participating in this extremely important dialogue, how to feed a very fragile and, to me, almost a broken world. And I want to focus on three aspects: people, partnerships, and practices. And I'm just going to share with you some examples from the African continent, transcending from people, planet, and profit. So in this context, I just quickly want to move my slides. There we are. I want to first start with an example of RU Forum, which is, of course, our regional universities forum for capacity building in agriculture. So if we talk about developing people and human capital for resilient food systems, I think this is a classic example. RU Forum will have their AGM in December, and they have two extremely important events. One is really about strengthening human capital development in Africa. And the second will be future frontiers for global collaboration and partnerships in higher education and research. Now, let me just take one step back and take you to the vision of RU Forum. And it's really, their vision 2030 is about a vibrant, transformative universities catalyzing sustainable, inclusive agricultural development to feed and create prosperity for Africa. They are busy building the Africa we want. They've already contributed significantly to training masters and PhDs, awarding post-research grants, establishing very strong networks with the African Union and international partners. And I think that's a very important example for us in Africa. I then want to move over to the African Academy of Sciences. And as you are aware, it was established in 1985 by 34 founding fellows. And this is really to honor the African leadership. And we have 25 Nobel laureates that's been born in Africa. And today we have more than 650 fellows. That's really reflecting on the excellent and the research capacity on the continent and the talent that we have. But very importantly for the African Academy of Science is to build the next generation of young leaders, and keeping in mind that the African Academy of Science is a non-aligned, non-political, not-for-profit Pan-African organization with a vision to transform lives in Africa. And that through science supported through the African Union, several governments and international partners. So the tripartite mandate is to recognize excellence through, of course, extremely prestigious fellowships and award schemes, to provide advisory and think tank functions, and to implement, very importantly, these science, technology, and innovation programs to address Africa's development challenges. They've got postdoctoral fellowships program, but the one I want to focus on today is the ARISE fellowship program. It's recently, we had our kickoff meeting in June this year, and we have awarded 45 researchers from 38 African countries these ARISE fellowships, which is really about building capacity in African researchers, focusing on early career scientists that will deliver cutting edge research, and they will contribute towards the transformation of Africa. So it's really not only about improving the capabilities of emerging African early career researchers, but to strengthen institutional research management and support systems. And of course, to work through cutting edge research and drive transformation through a knowledge base and innovative-led continent. So these to me are very important examples where things are being implemented, developed, and a strong network established. But there is other partnerships. I'm just listing one, the Global Network for Local Impact. It's the Resilient Food Systems, where international funding for agricultural development is actually moved into different African countries, literally making a local impact. So global networks for local impact. And they also provide, for instance, food systems knowledge centers. In this case, their mission is to foster sustainability and resilience in food security and to contribute to that paradigm shift within agriculture. So to me, these are important partnerships, and we've already heard several important presentations this morning. I want to take you into practices, and from a practices point of view, I'm more focusing on ideas and concepts and how we apply these new technologies, integrate them, and create these transdisciplinary frontiers. And one example is the One Health Commission, and looking at resilient food systems. And we are all familiar with the sectors and disciplines in terms of environment, animal, and human, how we have to integrate that with society at a regional, global, local and national level, including rural, urban, and of course, looking at inclusivity, equity, and access. So it is the communication, the collaboration, the coordination, and capacity building. So we are talking about healthy animals, healthy humans, and healthy ecosystems. But my question is, where's plant health? And why is that not more prominent within the One Health context? And I know it's classified and grouped under healthy ecosystems, but plant health contribute towards sustainable, resilient food systems. And I feel this is extremely important context that should be put and placed in the middle of this. And I'm going to use one example. And I'll be honest, I'm proudly a plant pathologist. In fact, I believe that practical plant pathologists work towards a resilient, sustainable food systems. And I believe they need to be afforded a more prominent seat within the global debates. I want to give you one example. In 1998, we had the International Society for Plant Pathology, our international conference. And during this conference, the Nobel Peace Laureate, Dr. Norman Borlaug, gave a presentation, and he actually challenged our society. And he said, in the light of the global challenge in terms of feeding more than 800 million people that actually do not have enough food, and he was referring also to the impact of pests and pathogens and how it's reducing our crops, increasing losses and waste. And he referred to figures of over 10%. And I asked myself 25 years later, what has happened? Well, our World Hunger Index increased. And the most important, if I look at some of the statistics, and I'm using just one example, if I'm talking about more than 40% estimated losses at a crop level, crop production level. So to me, this brings biosecurity to the fore, and it places plant health in the middle with food security. And if we're going to develop sustainable food systems, we must ensure healthy plants. So extremely important is that this society has established the Food Security Journal that, as you know, is one of the most prominent journals globally. We have also established a task force, and in August, we will have our international conference next year, One Health for All Plants. And that to me is extremely important event. I want to end by focusing on some practices for resilient food systems. And I'm going to give an example of our Center of Excellence Food Security in South Africa, where we are looking at the paradox to food systems challenges. And we're obviously looking at the South African context of historic challenges, the challenges around land reform, and the unequal system between the formal and informal sector, and the many challenges we have. But if we look at this Center of Excellence for the past 7 years, they have been able to create extremely strong networks, more than 30 universities or research councils, or partners, engagements with more than 30 different community of practices, meetings and conferences, also addressing the wicked problems within food security, and very importantly, representing 4 research chairs, 2 UNESCO chairs, and 4 centers of excellence, bringing that together. With incredible outputs of peer-reviewed papers, more than 360 for this period and 400 postgrads. To me, this is a center that forms a critical network and contribute towards addressing resilient food systems. One aspect that I want to highlight was some of these key studies that's been done in collaboration with CIRAD and EU and FAO, was to really look at the key challenges and how we can include this. And the 2 I want to highlight is the point, placing farmers and local food actors at the center of food systems, and further to promote local innovation and support centers and hubs. And that's really what we've been talking about today. My second last slide is just looking at some of our examples in South Africa, where we're looking at place-based research programs, where we are including multiple dimensions in our local food systems. We're integrating that. We are looking at the constraints of food flows, and we are developing transferable models in systems thinking. So these, to me, are extremely important programs. We also have at the University of Pretoria, the ARUA Center of Excellence Sustainable Food Systems, which is an extremely important center in the African context, the African Research University Alliance. And we also have the FSNet Africa Food Systems Research Network. Both of these have already been presented at this conference. And I want to just highlight 1 or 2 interesting aspects. One interesting study by Dr. Nukutula was one of the projects looking at network analysis and the collaborative systems we currently have within the African context. I want to end my talk with just a reflection on 2 beautiful paintings. It was part of a series of paintings that was commissioned by the African Academy of Sciences. And I want to put a challenge out there to co-empower Africa, to make our dreams come true. We have to create a fair, free, just, equitable, equal opportunity, food secure future for all. And we cannot leave anyone behind. And with that, I want to thank you and just quote, the greatest threat to our planet is belief that someone else will save it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Liz, for very powerful presentation, and especially your closing your presentation with very good slides. Both of the slides, they were really giving good message. Thank you very much, and also highlighting the role of African Academy of Sciences also. So this was really appreciated, and I feel privileged to be that associate fellow of the African Academy of Science and also the TWAS, and who are the co-organizer of this meeting. So thank you very much. So I think that we had really great session, and we can have a few questions from our panelists. I have seen that some of the panelists, they were already responding to the different questions. And I know that we have limited time, so I would like to request all of our speakers to just answer question in just 1 minute or so, so that we can take up a few questions, or at least one question to each panelist. Harold, I think if you are around, we have one question to you, though you answered several other questions. Harold, let me see if he's still around, or yes.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So, and you answered several questions. We are really appreciating your efforts. Thank you very much. Despite of your busy schedule, you are here. One question came from the Mauritius, because they asked the question, would CGIAR be interested to partner with the Mauritius to focus towards food security and climate change?
Well, Ranjit, it's a straight question. We don't. We obviously would be happy to partner with Mauritius, but what I would like to say is to give them a clue on what we're doing. We have a country convener who's coordinating CGIAR's partnership in the IOC region, what we call the Madagascar and all those countries in that region. And I was there about a few months ago, and meeting with the minister and trying to see that we could look at, have this kind of discussions with different categories of stakeholders in these countries. So we are we are working on that, and we're also having the support of various interested stakeholders like the World Bank, who are trying to run some of the very, very interesting research and development programs to address challenges in those countries. So we're really open to that, and I'll inform the country convener to get in touch.
Thank you, and I also would like to thank you. And basically, when you highlighted about the product profiling in the CGIAR system, even before joining Murdoch, when I was working with ICRISAT and earlier Generation Challenge program, and you have been on the advisory panel. So thank you for all your support to me as also as an individual scientist, but of course, now your guidance to the CGIAR. So yes, you already highlighted, and I think this is very much now in the CGIAR system, and many NARs in Africa, Asia, and they are following. So thank you very much, Harold. And I know that you may need to leave early. So thank you very much. We would like to thank you very much for all your contribution and guidance.
Thanks.
Okay.
It's been a pleasure.
Sure. Thank you. Now I would like to have one quick question to Chike. Chike, you have already answered some of the question in the chat, but one question is that what are the unique strategy required across the world to implement GM crops and plant genetic materials? I can understand this is a bit contentious issue, but would like to hear your views on this particular point.
Okay, thank you very much, Rajiv. It's actually not contentious.
Okay.
Globally, we have the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. So the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety to the Convention on Biological Diversity provides the template. It provides the template for the safe use and transport of living modified organisms. And in a nutshell, what countries need to do is to develop a national biosafety framework. And a country that doesn't already have this, that could approach organizations such as FAO for help in setting up the framework. There are funding mechanisms that are available, for instance, from the Global Environment Facility, or GEF. And another way to also do it is to learn from the experiences of other countries in the region. So having said that, that is why I say it is fairly simple. So there needs to be a framework and people need to abide by it. Regarding plant genetic resources, there is also a global framework, at least that is led by FAO, and that is under the auspices of the Commission on Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture. I mentioned that the team that I lead in FAO hosts the Secretariat for the Intergovernmental Working Group on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture of the Commission. And through this normative process, there is the second global plan of action for plant genetic resources for food and agriculture that sets out 18 priority activities that countries implement in order to save their plant genetic resources and to use them sustainably. And again, if country needs assistance, that is why we are there. I'm happy to receive an email from the requester and then put the person in touch with the appropriate colleague who will be able to help. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, Chike. I think, yeah, that's very good. Thank you very much. There was some question to Jennifer. She already responded in the chat, and I think they can also contact Jennifer. We have one question to Ravi, and I think he already answered some of the question in chat box, but I also know the answer, but I will let Ravi to answer this question about APAARI. Dr. Ravi Khetrapal, are you around?
Yes,
I
please.
hope so. Yes, please.
Yeah.
So, yes. So their question is about the APAARI membership. Is it this only for the institutions or individuals as well? If so, how an individual can be engaged with APAARI?
Well, APAARI membership is either for the countries, for the NARS, or for the CGIAR, like international organizations, for IRCA institutions, for universities, education sector, for the sub-regional fora, and now we have opened up to the private sector. So we do not have provide membership to the individuals. Like, it's not possible. We work with associations or big organizations. It's not easy to work with individual in our setup.
Yeah.
But we can always work with some individual, but we can't work with them on the membership basis.
So, yeah. So Ravi sir, quickly, because we also have one question from Dr. Darshan Sharma from DPAD here in Australia related to this one. When you talked about the commitment to partnership, and this depends upon the value propositions. So they say that, have you tried this approach to entice potential collaborators?
Well, we have done it because we are dealing with a large number of global and regional projects. This is the end result is you can't be choosy about partners when you do a project. You can't be choosy. You can just know why it is not happening. Like how you have to be careful next time. It's quite, this topic is a very sensitive topic and a most important topic, which is one of the SDGs, the partnership. And I think we have not talked much today about partnership per se. We are just saying where we have partner, how we have partner, how much we have partner. I think partnership per se needs a special focus. There are a lot of things we need to talk. I only spoke with personal experiences, but we really need to elevate the importance of partnership in general by knowing the basic mechanisms, principles, problem, and challenges.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think, well, very good answer. And one question we would like to ask to Viv. Viv, this demand-led breeding is really a good concept. And I think as Chiedozie mentioned that they are also doing this in cassava, and now this is happening in many other CGR system NARS. So just in the context of that Africa, and you gave the example of Waki, Aki, Makerere University, and many others one, would you like to give some suggestions for the young researchers who have just done their PhD now to secure some grants for undertaking R&D project? Because Recently, I was in another meeting in Cold Spring Harvard Laboratory. The question was that when these young researchers are coming, and majority of time R&D projects, they are going to established organizations or established research group leaders. So how to keep this young generation engaged with this important question of that food and nutrition security?
I would say it's actually at the heart of one of the principles, actually, and that is, and there's a couple of things related to it. It's one is know who you're serving. Really go and see, you need to find a way to go and see them to really understand what their problems are and what their needs are, so that when you have difficult days on your projects, you can look beyond that and think, well, actually you're doing it for very, very important reason. And connecting, I think, the science with the people down the chain that are going to actually value your work. And I think know who you're going to pass your work to. What is the track by which, if it's knowledge creation, who will use the knowledge that you are generating, so that you know what you're doing I'm talking about as an applied scientist now, is actually going to make a difference.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very well. Yeah. And thank you very much. We would like to have one question to Chiedozie, and I think you answered several questions, but it seems your talk has created a lot of interest in cassava germplasm that I was following up this chat. So now they are asking that if some other countries would like to evaluate, and this question is coming from another friend, Babak from Iran, and he says if you would like to evaluate the cassava germplasm, in this particular case in Iran, but in many other countries, as a climate resilient crops, what will be your suggestion, or so some idea about that?
Right. I mean, cassava is very good for those kind of dry places. And I mean, there's genetic variability or genetic variation for its response to drought. We clearly have varieties that have thrived and given good yields in dry areas where there is even sudden drought at the wrong timing of the plant. So it's all going to be geographic because of the logistics involved. We will say we can do that based on geography. So if you are going to be from Asia, Southeast Asia, Iran, I can make the connection. I've dropped my contact in the chat box, and you can contact me. I'll link you up with the right partners. Like, for example, the Colombian International Center for Tropical Agriculture will be the right plug for that. But I mean, we can send you from Nigeria or from Uganda, but I think for that Asia, but for Africa, just send to me and I'll make that happen through IITA. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Egesi. And I think we can have one question quickly to Lise. You mentioned about the development of transferable models for food system planning. I think this is very important, which can be used by the local governments and other stakeholders. Can you give some little bit, elaborate this topic, that how this can be done? So will be, so Lise?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important to have the balance between local food systems, supporting that, expanding it, because that gives you the resilience in your system, the stability. If we look at during the COVID disruptions and inability to move food globally, we were really all looking inwards and looking at our local food supplies and food systems and our ability to not only produce but store and distribute locally. So that first and foremost, to me, should be a key focus for any country, to stabilize those rural connections, strengthen it, and ensure that we are able to produce enough food in a regional context. My second point is to invest in the human capacity, human capital context, and we have to create a pipeline and a pathway. And if I say a pipeline, we need to identify young people to go into agriculture and food production and processing and distribution. They need to understand food systems. But then we need to nurture them and empower them to go into a career pathway. And we often leave them at a PhD level or a postdoctoral level. We need to provide them that support system to ensure that this young emerging scientists will be the leaders of tomorrow. And a classic example is the FSNet. It was presented yesterday. The FSNet program to invest in postdoctoral fellows. And I think that's a very important investment opportunity for all of us. Thank you.
Murdoch, so I will respond to that one. There was a question that when we are talking about food security and also that's to feed the billions and sustainable intensification of agri-food systems and to combat climate change, what should be the role of internationally renowned universities like Murdoch? So this is a very particular question, but I think universities like Murdoch, and here we are having for Agriculture Food Futures Institute, we got 3 centers, Center for Crop and Food Innovation, which I lead, another center for the farming system, and another 3rd center is for Center for Animal Production. And like Murdoch, there are many other universities in Australia who are also having the Agriculture Research Institute. And we have, as we've mentioned, we have ACIR, Australian Council for International Agriculture Research, also Crawford Fund, and many other organizations, including GRDC. So I think together with these organizations, these universities or those, they are already undertaking several projects in many countries in Asia. And now we are also we also have one other project from the ACIR in Africa as well, which Dr. Wallace Cowling is leading, and I'm also on the advisory board. So I think there are many examples like that one. And from the Murdoch University and in my role as an international chair for agriculture and food security, I'm very much interested to continue to expand our activities in this space. So this is my view. Second quick question I would like to answer, that there was question from Indian perspective. They say that there are now some private universities in addition to the public universities. They're talking about inclusion of molecular methods and digital tools, that how they can collaborate. And I think my response to this particular point is that, yes, I think there is, in India, they are moving ahead now to having this partnership with the private sector and public sector. So you please interact with those key research organizations in India, like including Indian Agriculture Research Institute or many other universities, or CGIAR Research Institute like ICRISAT, which are in India, or other organizations. And definitely they will be very excited to help you. So I think you please go ahead. Lastly, although we don't have time, but I would like to take this question because this question is coming from another friend of mine, Dr. Francis Ogovania. And he's asking that we would like to hear the view of the panel on the role of national governments in strengthening institutional capacity, establishment of infrastructure, as well as commitment to long-term and sustained investment to accelerate, transform and African agriculture and achieve food security. Thank you, Francis. I know in Canberra this should be very late, but you are still awake. So this shows your commitment to international agriculture as well. And I think instead of asking everybody, maybe I can ask Chike, coming from FAO. What do you think, Chike, about this particular question for Francis? And those of you who don't know, Francis Ogovania is coming from the Grain Research Development Corporation in Australia, very important organization for Australian agriculture here. Francis, Chike, would you like to comment on this particular point?
Yes, Rajiv, thanks for the opportunity to speak to this. We are talking about partnerships today. So achieving food security and nutrition, especially for places where the solutions seem to have been elusive, will require partnerships. However, for those partnerships to work, there has to be a political will. The national government has to decide that enough is enough. It's our responsibility to feed our people, and then put in place the enabling environment for whatever investments are being made to be able to flourish. So in a nutshell, Francis, the national governments should be leading. And, and we know this in every country where food security and nutrition has been addressed, both in the recent past and historically, the governments have always led. Our director general is from China, and he likes to give these examples of how the agricultural and food system of the country was transformed in the last 4 decades or so. Rajiv, in your native India, it's also the same story. We can also mention Brazil and several other countries. The Green Revolution would not have worked if the governments of India and Pakistan were not ready to adopt the technologies and provide the enablement for the farmers who adopted those technologies to be able to make money from planting the crops. So in a nutshell, yes, there will be partnerships, but the governments have to prioritize food security and nutrition and say, yes, it is time to end hunger and malnutrition. Then every other thing will fall into place. Thank you. Over.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chike, for answering very elegantly. And I think I would also like to mention that I think that commitment from the state government is very, very much required. And I think this is already happening. And wherever countries, they showed their support and commitment, we have seen that how agriculture has contributed to improve the livelihood of the smallholder farmers. So I think this is very good. Thank you very much, Chike. Thank you very much, Francis. I think we would like to close this session because we are already beyond time. But before that, I think we had great discussions. I don't want to spend a lot of time in that summarizing, but would like to mention this was very clear from all that panelists and also the discussion that partnership is very much required, and partnership is required in the different phases, starting from the discovery, implementation, development, extension. So we need to have the different kind of partners. And when we talk about these different kind of partners, then I think equal value partnership is very much as required for the success of any initiative or the project, because if we are having that, and we need to have this ownership on these partnerships. So I think this is another thing. We also had some discussion about this purpose-based partnership, value proposition. So I think these are some key words that when we are talking about dealing or tackling the bigger issues in international agriculture, different kind of stakeholders are required. And we talked today, international organizations like FAO, CGIAR, major organization in Africa like AGRA, AGRA, or in Asia, for instance, APAARI, and then many national programs across the different countries, advanced research institute, including Cornell University, for instance, universities in Australia, Europe, and all over the places. And nowadays we are having these farmer progressive organization, and we need to have the voice of the farmers also. And also we discussed that role of the investors, the funders from the international organizations and also in the different countries. So I think we are talking the partnership in that bigger way, where each and every stakeholders plays very important role, from the conceptualization towards implementation in all the different areas. So I think we had really great session, and at this stage, and I would like to thank all the partners once again, all the panelists for great job. Please join me in thanking all the panelists. Despite of their busy schedules, they could come here, they share their views. I would like to avail this opportunity to thank all the participants and also all the co-organizers and organizers, including Murdoch University, Food Futures Institute, Center for Crop and Food Innovation, UNESCO, the World Academy of Sciences, the African Academy of Sciences, Australia Africa Universities Network, and APAARI, and of course the World Food Prize Foundation. They provided us this opportunity to organize this important session. Several people played a key role in organizing this session. Here I would like to mention Ms. Anu Chitkineni, Senior Science Manager from the Center for Crop and Food Innovation, for working hard for several weeks and having that correspondences with large number of people around the world. So thank you very much, Anu. We would like to thank Natalie Widner from the World Food Prize Foundation. She played very key role to engage us in this important activity. And of course, all the co-organizers, but would like to mention especially name of Pooja Mathur and Vishwanath Saha from APAARI. Pooja, you have done a great work with us to organize this session. And I'm sure that Dr. Ravi Khetrapal is going to give some bonus or enhance your salary now after this session. He's just smiling, so I'm considering this as positive news. Anyway, jokes apart, but also Mr. Vishwanath Saha, you have done a wonderful job from APAARI for both of you. Vanika Garg from my own labs, he is postdoctoral fellow, but doing great work, and Prasad Bajaj, who's my old friend, and many other colleagues and friends who have done a wonderful job to organize this session. So thank you very much, and thanks all the participants. They came from the different parts of the world, from the more than 55 countries. There are some of them, they are still hanged or still here. So thank you very much. With these words, that with the partnership, we will continue to contribute to international agriculture with the motto, nobody left hungry. So I think, and we can do it. So with these words, thank you very much once again. Keep on doing great work to improve the international agriculture and agriculture in your own countries, in your own areas. Thank you. Thank you once again. And have a great evening, great day, good night. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well done, Rajiv.
Thank you. Thank
You and your team.
Rajiv, as always.
Thanks. So nice of you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.